I'm Jessie Heredia, and you're listening to Soul Care for the New Mom, a podcast designed with new moms in mind, where we talk about what it looks like to thrive in motherhood as the free, confident, joy-filled women God has called us to be. For today's episode, you are getting an inside look at a recent coaching session, actually 2 recent coaching sessions that I did with one of my clients, Shanna. Now, the first part you're about to hear is from a session that we did together 2 weeks ago. And as you will pick up on, it was during a time when Shanna had found herself suddenly seriously struggling as a result of the coronavirus and the effect that it's had on her family. There was a lot of pressure and struggle revolving around the topic of distance learning specifically, which I know a lot of families have been thrust into these days. But even more so than that, she was struggling with understanding why she was having such a tough time emotionally, why she felt like she was experiencing something that even reminded her of her postpartum depression from nearly 10 years ago. For people who do have high highs and low lows emotionally, such as myself, it can be really discouraging to find yourself feeling so low, especially after a season or time of not feeling low and actually feeling good and thriving and positive. But one of the things I had to remind Shanna, which came up not just during this session, but also in the follow-up session we had that you'll get to hear as well, is that our breakdowns do not negate our breakthroughs. And I don't know who might need to be reminded of this today, but odds are that some of you listening have been experiencing a lot more breakdowns lately than you maybe expected. You know, maybe this transition into staying home, if you previously had a job outside of the home before COVID, maybe that's hit you super hard. Or maybe you were already a stay-at-home mom, but now you're feeling the weight of being stripped of the things you used to enjoy and depend on, like play dates and outings and community. Maybe you're struggling with crippling anxiety now, or you're feeling depression trying to sneak in. And if that's the case, I do want to encourage you to listen to my episode from 2 weeks ago called Being Empowered During a Time of Crisis and Grief. I think that's a great episode that will serve you well. But I also want you to really pay attention to these conversations with Shanna that you're about to hear. Because so much of what we talked about, like being willing to simplify, extending compassion to yourself for your emotional lows and your struggles, looking for options and solutions, especially when you're feeling helpless or powerless. These are all things that I believe each of us need to be reminded of from time to time, and maybe more so now than ever. So, as I said, you are going to hear snippets of 2 separate sessions with Shanna that are approximately 1 week apart. And the reason I wanted to share both is because of what a complete 180 she experienced between the 2. It was amazing to hear in our follow-up session how she was able to actually implement the things we talked about and then reap huge results, even in just her ability to stay organized and tackle each day with strength instead of crumbling from depression or anxiety. But before we get to that part, I think we need to start at the beginning. So without further ado, here is the first part of my first session with Shanna. See that there was an incident or a moment on Tuesday where things started to switch, because it does seem a little bit off to me that this is I think now the 3rd week that we are on this like self-quarantine, we're home. And on the one hand, I could understand why now it feels more real. So there's more of like that grief and that stress of, oh my gosh, like this isn't going to end. But on the other hand, we've been doing this for like, this is our 3rd week now. So I'm wondering what happened on Tuesday. If you could try to pinpoint even just one moment, because at least then that's like one little thread we can pull at versus just being like, I don't know, could be a number of things. Like what if we were just focusing on just one specific thread for a minute?
Well, what it is this week we started distance learning.
Okay.
And that is solely what has, I felt so overwhelmed trying to say, I don't have the skills or the tools that a teacher has because I'm not a teacher. And so, and I know all the moms feel like this, and there was no preparation for this. So all of a sudden we're thrust into adding this on top of everything else. Now my dad, I work for my dad. He's like, just don't come in Tuesday and Wednesday. He's like, don't worry about it. I know you, but it was almost worse for me because I don't know. Monday was pretty bad. I was at work and I was like, in the conference room with them, also trying to be at my desk. I think that's why he was just like, just do what you need to do. I'm going to give you a couple of days, which was I guess it was a blessing, but honestly, I felt so incredibly trapped. This is okay. I'm sorry. I feel a little bit all over the place, but, I was up probably Wednesday night until about 2 a.m. just trying to figure out like what is going on, why am I feeling like this? Because it was scary. I really had the same exact feelings I felt when I was going through postpartum. I felt hopeless. I was crying. I had this ache in my heart of just like grief. That's all I can really explain it as. It's just this like grief. And really and truly, I feel like it was maybe either a loss of control. I was angry. I had all these different emotions, and I didn't get anything done for myself. And that's what I told Jordan on Thursday. I said, I feel like I'm losing myself. And I think too, because I have felt like this before, and it was such a dark time in my life, I was like terrified. It was like this like fight or flight kind of thing. And I mean, I'm not leaving because you can't leave. So I feel so incredibly trapped. So it's like I'm fighting against myself and my emotions. And I'm not necessarily, and I definitely for sure was pacing my bathroom like, I can't do this. I was saying things to myself that I haven't said in a really long time. And like just feeling, and I just, like I said, I was like, I feel like this whole new routine, this whole new everything is like, I don't know, Jesse, last week and the week before, because there was no schoolwork and there was no kids stuff. And like I said, I have a lot of, Sammy stresses me out a lot. Like a lot of times I pray and I'm like, what would it be like if I didn't have a child who is so difficult when it comes to school? It's really hard. And like, I feel like I'm in 7th grade. I feel like whereas my daughter she can do everything on her own. It's just, they're different personalities. I don't compare them, but trying to explain to people the difference, of what it's like. And he has a learning disability. That's what it's like. So it's like, he's doing things, but I'm doing things with him. He won't do it. And he just can't focus and doesn't necessarily understand things. The processing isn't the same. So there's a lot there. It's just really hard. I don't really know how else to explain it. I just feel very overwhelmed when it comes to him. But I will say that yesterday I sat down because like I said, I was up on Wednesday night. And in your video, girl, I was like, okay, new situation. I have to have new systems. It's not the old. So that's what I took your advice to heart. Like I was like, okay, so I sat down with some stickies and I was like, okay, I'm going to write his schedule, what's due today, her schedule, what's due today. And it helped everybody. They were like, oh, wow, okay, this is a list, 1, 2, 3. This is a list, 1, 2, 3. And so I do believe that's going to be the only way we're going to get through this. But selfishly, I'm like, I feel like I was thriving last week. I feel like I was thriving the week before for the first time. Not for the first time, but you saw it. We were on the call last week and it was like a breakthrough. I finally had this breakthrough that I have been pursuing. And now I feel this week like maybe that's what I was grieving. I don't really know. I'm like, how can I feel like I'm losing that. I'm like, well, what was the point of that when I have all of this on my plate? I have all of these things now. I am questioning it. I'm like, I think outwardly I'm doing an okay job. I'm still showing up in my group. I'm still showing up on stories. When I feel good, I'm like, I've got to record right now because I don't always feel like it. I feel overwhelmed some of the times. But that I'm like, how am I gonna, I don't know. I guess last week I felt like I could really make this a business. Like this could really work. This could really happen. And now this week I'm like, I don't think that I'll be able to. There's no energy for it. There's no room on my plate. My plate is first and foremost to be a mom. And I'm angry about it. I'm so mad. I'm like, should I have had kids? Like, that's how I feel. I'm like, I'm blaming, I'm having all these feelings of like, I'm so I'm mad. I'm so mad. I even wrote it in my journal. I'm like, God, I'm a little bit mad right now, and I don't want to be angry at you. I don't want to be angry that you've given me this. I know there's people out there that just, they can't have kids. And I know that. But I feel also like, I feel like my kids are holding me back. And I don't want to feel like that.
I want to pause here for a moment because I'm imagining the listener right now who is in this exact same place, feeling these exact same things: anger, frustration, doubt. Why did I become a mom? Why did I willingly surrender so much of my life and my control and my time or my body? I'm imagining that there's a mom listening right now who has unmet desires, unused gifts, these dreams and these passions that have either been put on the back burner or you're just not able to chase after to the extent that you want because of the demands of parenthood. And if that is you, I want to let you know, first of all, that there's no shame in that. There's no shame in that. The shame or guilt that you feel as a result of your anger or any other feelings or any other thoughts about life and motherhood, that shame and guilt does not exist outside of your thought life. It doesn't. And that doesn't necessarily make it easy to deal with, but it at least shows that it can be dealt with. Shame and guilt, they're just thoughts. It's just made up of thoughts that we put on ourselves. They really are. There is no condemnation in Christ Jesus. And nothing that anybody else says, our parents, our spouses, our friends, strangers on the internet, they can't attach shame and guilt to us. They can't put shame and guilt on us without our say-so, without us giving that permission. So I just want you to sit with that for a minute before I resume this recording, because I think that shame is something that far too many moms carry around for far too long, and it doesn't have to be that way. It is possible to take a step back, look at things a little more neutrally, look at ourselves a little more objectively again, and to give compassion to ourselves in the same way we would offer compassion to others, in the same way Jesus already does for us.
Okay. All right, there's a lot there. I had a few different thoughts. So
Sorry.
the first is, no, don't apologize. Please feel free to break down. This is the moment for the breakdown. And speaking of breakdown, one of the first things I thought is, you said, like, I felt like I just had a breakthrough and now I feel like it's gone. What happened? And I think that might be one of your misconceptions, is that somehow what you are experiencing now is negating that. As if that never happened, as if those breakthroughs never took place, when the truth is they did happen. One of the things you said in I think it was one of your audio messages to me, you said, I'm worried that I'm always going to need a coach. I just don't get what's wrong with me. Why am I back in the same place? But the truth is you're not back in the same place because you have other breakthroughs under your belt. And they're building up. It's like you're putting drops in a bucket. And eventually you're going to be at this point where you're so full that you have more of that overflow. But right now you're still needing to be poured into. And that's okay, because I think for most of the world, that is the way that it is. We all need people to pour into us. It's very rare that you find someone who is thriving and who doesn't have someone speaking into their life. You have to remember that, especially for people in leadership, people in ministry, people who, are working hard and wanting to create something like you are. Don't for a second think that they don't have tough times where they need to have people to speak into their life and where they don't have breakdowns. There's breakthroughs and there's breakdowns, and they don't negate the other, that they're just all things that we're building up and we're learning from. So I just wanted to just clarify that, the breakthroughs that you had last week, the week before, those were still real. Those still happened. And I know that you know that deep down, because it meant so much to you. And I know that if you, looked back through your journal entries, or if you, could recall things that you felt and the victories you experienced, that those were real. So don't try to explain those away and be like, it didn't happen, or I'm just still a mess. And, it all went to crap, even though it does feel like maybe things did go to crap for a second. This is just another bumpy road, a little bump in the road that we're going to get through. The second thing I thought was, you said, I feel like my kids are holding me back. And I mean, that's a tough thought. That's a tough thought to really know what to do with. It's like, what if it's partly true, but what if it's partly false? I don't really know if I can say, yes, that's true, no, that's false, because I think that it's a both and. I think our kids are super like big priority. Like that's a part of what God's plan for our life is. Like, he wouldn't have given them to us, and we wouldn't be called to this family if it didn't matter, if it wasn't something that should be our priority, that should be our focus. So I think that, like, on the one hand, like, no, they're not holding you back. They are it. But at the same time, I think that it can be a both and. Yes, maybe they are kind of holding you back. But who's to say that that's this terrible, awful thing? What if it's just something that you just are having to go through, like almost like, not to say like treat your kids like adversity, but motherhood in and of itself is a challenge. It is a season of adversity and difficulty and transition and growth and being stretched and being sanctified. So I think that kind of is true. Your kids are holding you back, but also the things that you're learning are propelling you forward. It's like a both and I just kind of I just want to remind you of that. Like, you don't have to think in such absolutes. My kids are holding me back. I had a breakdown. That must mean that I'm not XYZ. It's not absolutes, it's both and I think that the more you bring that to the Lord, I think like you'll feel more of that peace and realize, yeah, like there is a lot of gray area in a way where you can be both working hard towards something, but also having to slow down. You can be both fully committed to this mission that you have, but also feel this pull as a mom. I don't think that anything you're going through is odd or strange or like a sign that you're doing something wrong. I think it's just a sign that there are still things to be learned. And I don't know if we're ever going to get out of that, if we're ever going to not have that push, that pull to do better, be more efficient, be more slow, be more restful, be more productive. There's always going to be a pull in some direction. So I just want to encourage you there. Like, it's not absolute. You're not failing as a mom. You're not failing as this entrepreneur, coach, minister. Like, you're not failing in anything. You're just growing in all of it. You're growing in all of it. It's a both and. It's not an either or. Let's talk for a second about, with your son and having to do the distance learning. And I know that it's requiring more of you than it has in the past. I'm wondering, what are the chances that there is a online tutor or somebody you could find, even if it's like a family friend, who could step in and be that sort of tutor and be that sort of help for him, even if just like 1 or 2 days a week, so that not all of the pressure is on you? Would that maybe be an option?
Maybe. I mean, I can think about it. It's definitely something that I haven't really thought about, but I can think about that and see what I can do with that. I'll think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take me really being organized, and that is not my strong point at all. Like, that is so scary to me, because I'm like, if that's what it takes for me to thrive right now, like there's a lot of work to be done. And I don't want to put the work into that, because I want to put my work into my business. That's really what it is. And so I do feel like I got a little taste last week of like what it would be like to like go, that's what it would be like to like go. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes I see other women that are younger that are thriving, and I'm like, man, like they don't have kids like this. And I say to myself to make myself feel better, I'm like, that's why they're thriving. Not that they're not good. They are great at what they do, and I get it. But I'm like, man, if I didn't have kids, like I'd be rich, and B, I would be like a multimillionaire, which that is not the case. My kids are what grounded me in my life. I know that. I know what it was like before I had kids and I wasn't thriving. So I know that's a lie, but I do see that, and I say that, and I'm like, so last week I got a little taste of it. And this week, Jesse, I will tell you that this, in the past, when things like this have happened, I've like downward spiraled so hard and for so long. So I am really grateful that it's ups and downs every single day. And it's not just this shooting downward thing for an extent. You know, I am appreciating the little ups. You know, I am appreciating the little in-betweens. And I mean, I talked on stories about this last night and this morning, and I'm really trying to just the little things like, okay, that's a God shot. That's a God shot. That's a God shot. I get it. I feel it. Thank you. Maybe last week's momentum was so I could get through this week. You know, I get it. I'm like, I'm seeing all of these truths, but I'm still really having a hard time. Like my moments, I'm still going into the bathroom crying. Like I'm still breaking down with you. Like I'm still having these emotions and still wondering, you know, how I can, I don't know, advance and be all that I want to be. Will I ever meet, you know, and I'm really glad you said what you said, because I'm I'm like, okay, if it's this hard, am I supposed to be doing it? Of course I have those thoughts, you know, but I also know that nothing worth doing or having is easy. I know that. Or everybody would be doing it. I know. I listen to podcasts. I hear it. I don't know if I believe it right yet, but it's there. But as far as the tutor goes, I'll think about it and see. As of right now, I'm like, I don't know anybody on the top of my head, because it seems like everybody has something. I don't know of anybody that I've talked to that's like, I don't know, maybe I can reach out to somebody who, I don't know, maybe a teacher that used to tutor, or I don't know. I'll definitely think about it. That's something that and I'll ask Jordan about it. The school called today. Maybe I could call the school and ask. I can't be the only parent feeling like this. So, I'll think about it. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Why does the idea of getting organized intimidate you, do you think?
Okay, so Sammy gets his ADHD from me, but I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until after college. Like when I finally went to counseling, I was probably like 24, maybe 23, 24 when I started counseling. But so my doctor was like, I really have no idea how you even graduated college. Like, I don't even know. I'm like, well, I went to a private school. I definitely test terrible, but my professors, I know me and I know that what I need. So, and I went to a private college. It was Baptist affiliated. All I had to do was communicate. I would go and verbally do my test. 9 times out of the 10, the professors were like, that's fine. So I don't know if I would have passed college, or, you know, I don't know if I would have been able to do college in 4 years if, you know, I didn't have that help. And so that he gets that from me. And so I have a really hard time focusing. And I think that's another reason why I have a really hard time juggling motherhood and having a business. I wonder if God's trying to teach me organization right now. I just wonder. I wonder if he's like, let's just do this. It's going to be really hard, but like when you get through with this, you know how to organize yourself more. Maybe I will thrive more in my business. I don't want to predict things, because if it doesn't happen, I don't want to be disappointed, but I have thought that. And I'm, you know, I don't know how to be organized. Like, I don't know how people come up with like block schedules. Like you know how many times I get asked, are you a teacher? So many people ask me like, are you a teacher? Just because like I have that vibe or whatever it is. I don't know if I just look like a teacher, or the way I speak, or the way that I like use stickies and my planner and all these different things, but I don't know how teachers organize. I'm like, I to even think about that overwhelms me. To even think about like having to schedule a class and then a test and all these different, I'm like, nope, no, it completely, I just like back away. I'm like, nope. And I don't know. I feel like that now. I feel like I'm in this, like I'm just in a mess right now. I feel like, you know, the show Hoarders, and you walk into their home and it's like everything's everywhere. And it's like, oh my gosh, where do you start? Kind of that's how it makes me feel. When I think about having to organize my kids' schedules and my own schedule, I have that I'm feeling it right now. Like this, I don't know, like anxiety, panic, whatever it is. And it's just completely overwhelming.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's a skill you can learn. I don't know if there are things that I can watch, but it's like, I don't know. I know for me, I just do it. I don't know. And I know it's going to take me more effort, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure even where to start when it comes to, I told the kids yesterday, I said, we're going to start with stickies. We're going to do, like I said, this is today's work for you. This is today's work for you. I said, I know this sounds really simple and maybe in a week we'll change the system, but this is the way it has to start because it's all I know. All I know is to write lists on stickies or because when I was in high school, all I used was index cards. That's how I learned was index cards. So for me, I'm like, okay, well, the only thing I know is to write lists out and then accomplish one task at a time. That's the only thing I know that works for me. So that's all I know to do for them, is do that. I don't know how to, create spreadsheets and figure, maybe it doesn't need to be that fancy. I don't know. But when I think about somebody who's super organized and on task, that's what I think of. So my way off with this, as I'm speaking it out, I'm kind of answering myself, but I would love to hear from you.
I have a few different thoughts. My first thought, right when you said index cards, I was like, what's wrong with that? What if that's your form of organization? What if you just use index cards? I know you've said you started using, I think, Google Calendar, and you were moving from doing paper planner to doing more of a digital calendar, and and I could tell that transition was a little bit awkward for you, and maybe it still hasn't fully settled. And I'm just thinking to myself, what if that's overly complicated for you, and what if that's okay? What if instead of the having a planner, having a calendar, having to do Google Doc, whatever, what if you just used index cards? If that really is what you know and that's something that helped you, what if we were to just start from there? Scratch all the other systems that maybe you feel like you're failing at right now and just start with something that you think you could probably get away with and accomplish pretty well. I don't know. That might be an odd suggestion, and it might sound crazy because you're like, well, how do I not use a calendar? How do I not use a planner? I don't understand. Isn't that what you're supposed to do when you're an adult? But who says? I once went a whole year without using a planner or to-do list. I just didn't use one because I had a lot of perfectionism that I was trying to break free from. And I knew that planners were a really big trigger for me. In fact, I used to go through 10 planners a year. Every other month, I would buy a whole new one because I get sick of my handwriting or I get overwhelmed by my lists. And I would think, oh, but this planner has a section for your meal plan. Oh, but this planner has a section for this one actually has the hours listed out and da-da-da. So I would come up with 1,000,001 reasons. My husband would be like, you're a freak because you have spent all of our money on planners, and they would just get fancier and more expensive and more sophisticated. And finally, I just said, why am I torturing myself? Clearly this isn't working. And I just had to do away with it for a time, for 6 months. I just flew by the seat of my pants. If I if I needed to, I would write something down on a little piece of paper and stick it on the fridge. So I'd at least remember, oh, we have to pay that bill. Oh, we have to mow the lawn. But other than that, I just was like, I'm done. And it really broke me free from some things. And I'm wondering if maybe there's a way for you to break free from this thought of, I'm not organized. Maybe you've got to step away from your current organization and go with something a little bit simpler to boost your confidence again of, I can be organized, if I have to be. I don't know. What do you think about that?
No, I resonate so much with the planner thing because I'm like, never can find a planner that's right for me. Mm-hmm. And then I find myself looking for tutorials on how to be organized. And so I see somebody else who does all this block scheduling. And so then I try that and I'm like, I'm miserable. That's what I'm doing. I'm currently doing that right now. I started on Monday writing my planner, 12 to 1, I'm going to do this. 1 to 2, I'm going to do this. That does not work for me at all because the next day I'm haven't done anything on my list. And I'm like, well, I'm such a failure. That's really, those are the thoughts that I get triggered. And I'm so frustrated. And you saying all of this, hey, I'm like, oh my God, thank God I'm not alone with that at all. But I don't know what will work. But you're right. That is not working. It really is just making me feel worse about myself. The block scheduling it's not going to work for me. Maybe one day it will, but right now it's not.
Okay.
So I don't really know I'm telling you, the simplest thing, I just on a sticky just wrote the things out, and I'm wondering what can I do for myself that would be that easy as well? Because the whole planner idea, I'm I want one because I feel like it's what makes somebody look successful.
Mm.
And I want to be good at that. I want to have a planner, and every day, like, I wish I was that kind of person that I had my planner, I blocked out my schedule, I actually abided by it, but I'm probably not gonna, I'm going to be on social media 2 or 3 times a day. It's just the way it is. Like I talk to too many people in my DMs. Like I comment on too many people's stuff. Like I can't block out 1 hour. I can't. I don't want to. It's not that I can't. I don't want to. I want to be on a couple, 3 times a day. I really love social media.
Yeah. Okay. So here's an idea then. So what if we were to do an experiment where you just take a break from the planner for like even just 5 or so days? You know, it doesn't even have to be a full week. If a full week you're like, oh my gosh, but then everything's going to go nuts. So let's just try for like 4 or 5 days. And what if instead you were to use index cards or sticky notes and you just let it be a running list of what you feel like you want to get done or you need to get done. If it helps, you could have like, here's 1 index card for Monday, Tuesday. Here's 1 index card for Wednesday, Thursday, you know, so that at least like there's a little bit of structure as far as the days. Or you could even write out a sticky note for morning, afternoon, evening. And maybe part of your, you know, like, you know, you say like, I need better systems, I need better routines. I think the most important routine for you to be focusing on right now, here's me like giving you an answer because you're like, I need to watch tutorials. Here's me giving you your first answer, your first tutorial. Focus on your morning routine. Because if you don't have that nailed down, if you don't know how to start your day off feeling ready for the day, the whole day is going to just continue to feel like chaos, and it's going to build onto the overwhelm that you already started the day off with. So let's like really nail down your morning routine and let that be maybe the only routine you have until you really like have a good practice in place. And by morning routine, I mean, I wake up before the kids, or I at least have time away from the kids. 1 second. I have my time in the Word. I do my journaling, but then I also do some planning. I force myself to do some organizing. You know, it might not be fun for you to have to tack that part on, but I'll be honest, like I mean, I love organizing. I'm like, oh good, we're going to plan out the day. But do you know what I hate doing? I hate the journaling and the like emotion processing. That's the stuff that like I used to be really into and then I've taken a break from. And it's been like good to take a break from, but now I'm having to get back into it because I'm realizing there are emotions that I easily want to run from and not deal with. Or there are things that I want to say to God that I'm not saying. Or there are things that he wants to say to me that I'm not hearing. So like I'm having to really leave more space for that, and I'm having to push myself to do it, even though a part of me just wants to sit with my journal and just like do my mindset work. Oh, I'm gonna, you know, plan out my day. Here's how I'm gonna show up for my community. Like that stuff I love to do. The things I don't love to do is like really list out my prayers and like really list out, here's how God showed up for me, but I have to do it because that's what gets me in the right space. That's what helps fill in those feelings of I'm not doing enough. I'm not being filled enough. I'm not ready for my day. I'm not starting my day off with intention. So let's like really narrow down your morning routine. I think that that's the best place for you to start. Then maybe the rest will just come more naturally after you have that moment of intention. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, I try to have a morning routine, but it's not consistent. That's the biggest issue is I'm just not, I've done oh my gosh, my favorite thing to do is to get up in the mornings when nobody else is. Like, I wait for my husband to leave. This morning, this is what I did. I waited for my husband to leave because not that I don't want to be with him. I do. I want to be with him, but I just sometimes need to wake up on my own. Like once or twice a week, I just have to wake up on my own and just be without anybody. And it is like my favorite moments of solace. I mean, this morning, just getting up and going outside and being by myself, like not having anybody, no kids, no nothing. But it's like, I did that twice this week. Twice. And then with the amount of everything, all the other emotions that were happening, it was not enough. Yeah. It was not enough.
Yeah. Where is the lack of consistency coming from, do you think? Is it just you're just out of habit, or you've been staying up late, or what's some of the reasons?
I don't really know what it is. I don't know if it's because I've always had just issues being consistent with anything, you know. I mean, I grew up with like parents that were like, you have to have structure, boundaries, you have to do this, this, and this, but they were not. They didn't live by that. So for me, I've always like when I hear somebody say boundaries, or when like I cannot wait for Sunday, because girl, when I hear somebody say boundaries, I'm like, I literally will like roll my eyes and walk the other way, because I'm like I don't even. And then just the same thing with like consistency and discipline. Those, both of those words, probably all three of those words, are words that I am like, I hate them. And hate is I hate the word discipline. And not that I don't think that it's good. I think that being disciplined, I thought about choosing that as my word this year, but I didn't, because I have so many negative thoughts towards it, because anyhow, but I know a lot of it comes from that.
The words discipline and consistency, they kind of rub you the wrong way. That's so interesting to me. I'm also wondering if there is maybe some self-talk that we need to shift for a moment there. Because, like you said, like, I hate the word discipline. I hate the idea of being consistent. I mean, those are strong words, and I'm not going to argue with them, because like, if you hate them, you hate them. But like, I wonder if even just choosing to not speak into that, even though it might be true at the moment, I'm wondering if choosing to not speak into that could at least help you not get hung up on it as much. To at least, like, yes, you might still hate it, but at least you're not like, like gritting your teeth fighting it. At least you can still make a little bit of movement forward in it. I don't know. I almost wonder if there's like a couple declarations that might be really useful for you, specifically during this time of doing the distance learning, self-quarantining, having to find a new routine. I think that this new season probably calls for new declarations. And like, and I mean, I think we talked about this in my last session, but like, being newly pregnant, that has called for some new declarations for me. And like, at first I was like, oh, like, I don't want to have to like focus in on that, but it's important, because otherwise I could go this whole pregnancy resenting it, or I could go through this whole pregnancy feeling anxious and fearful and nervous. And I don't want to feel that way. I want to make a different experience out of it. So what if you had that same attitude toward this next month and a half, 2 months, I don't even know how much longer we have, but what if we were to use this time for a time of new declarations, a time of new truth that you decide, I'm going to speak over myself. It might not feel true, but yeah, it's still true. You might feel it's not possible for me to be disciplined, but what if you were to even just speak, someday it could be possible for me to be disciplined? Like, what if you were just like, make even the slightest change in your language to at least get you out of that super negative headspace that might even be hindering your growth? Does that make sense?
No, it does, for sure. I mean, I could definitely use some new declarations when it comes to that, especially if I'm going to practice. And, for 5 days, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to really be consistent with my morning routine. I'm probably going to hit a wall. I'm probably going to need declarations to get me even just through that, much less the other things with distance learning and things like that. So I can work on that.
Okay, so I'm going to interrupt one more time, because we are now about to hop into the following week's session with Shanna, where we recap what's helped, what's changed, and what's improved as a result of us working through the things that you just listened to. And before we do, I do want to ask you one simple, yet maybe a little complicated question. And that question is, how are you doing? How are you doing? Because I know that in a way, with social media always at our fingertips, we're able to be so connected these days. And yet, just from conversations I've had with different women these past few weeks, it's still really tempting to want to isolate and hide how we're really doing and what we're really feeling, isn't it? I remember feeling much of the same way at the beginning of this whole quarantine thing. And really what was my saving grace was being willing to keep showing up, being willing to process through what I'm feeling and struggling with, and also being willing to share these things with others instead of pretend like everything's fine. I hear from women all the time about how alone they feel, and this was before the coronavirus stuff. So I can only imagine how much more lonely this time has been for some. Maybe you've experienced a spike in your anxiety, or you're seeing that some depression is surfacing and you've been navigating that alone instead of seeking out support. Maybe you've been really struggling with motivation or with apathy. Every day looks like more of the same. So maybe it is easier to feel like this time might never end and to just kind of go through the motions and really slack on your personal goals and being intentional with family and even slacking on the simplest of self-care. And if you are struggling in any of these ways, I want you to know that there is hope and that you don't have to struggle alone. A few years ago, when I was walking through some of the darkest, hardest seasons of my life, dealing with postpartum rage and depression and anxiety and feeling like I had to mask it all, because otherwise it might prove that I don't deserve to be a mom or that my marriage is just a mess, which it was. When I was dealing with those things, I know that I waited way too long to speak up. I waited way too long. And one of the things I wish I could tell that Jessie is that there is no shame in reaching out for help. There is no shame in reaching out for help, and the same is true for you. One of the beautiful things about coaching is being able to work with someone in a judgment-free zone and actually have them help you navigate those messy, hard parts of your story. It really can be so freeing to get to speak your truth with someone who isn't afraid to go there with you and can also help pull you into a much healthier, more abundant, more freeing place. I'm so thankful that during this time, I have the privilege of coaching women in this way. And when I first started my program, I decided that the core belief behind the work that I do is that the women who most enjoy being a mom are the women who feel most empowered as a mom. And I really do believe that this is just as true during COVID as it was before. So if you are struggling to enjoy motherhood or even, enjoy your marriage these days, if perfectionism or anxiety or anger are threatening to rob you of your joy and are keeping you from walking in the freedom that Christ is offering you, I'd say now is a great time to learn what it means to be more empowered, because then you get to reap the amazing results, just like you're about to hear from Shanna. So, okay, I know I've said a mouthful, so we're going to wrap up today's episode with a segment from this second follow-up session with her.
I am so impressed. Like the fact that something as simple as sticky notes, you're already like, I feel more on top of this. And it's sticky notes. I know. Everyone has sticky notes lying around, and here you are using them for a system that's really helping you and feel less stressed.
So much so to where I didn't really, because, I have kind of, I like to buy office supplies, but I've tried to get a lot better about it. But I have like a stockpile of different colored sticky notes. So I'm like, I'm actually going to be able to use them. I'm implementing a color-coded system, but it's not going to be fancy. It's literally going to be, I'm probably doing it more for aesthetic, like a different color each day. So it looks pretty and rainbow, but that's okay. It works for me and makes us happy. I know it will make my daughter happy. So we'll see how it goes, but I have to just remember like simple, like I was looking over my notes and I'm like, okay, simple is just where we've got to stay. Because I could easily get, just distracted on other things with this. But like, if I can just stick to the idea of each day, a list, that's really all it is. The only thing I'm adding next week will be just more prep, like a weekly preparation rather than a daily.
Okay. Yeah. That's awesome. Now, what about for you personally? Have you tried any new systems or any new elements to your morning routine?
I hate to admit it, and it is really just as simple as me. I just had to take time. Like every single day I have taken time to be in the Word.
Okay.
And not only like my Bible reading plan, I realized isn't enough. So because I'm like, I just feel like I needed more, now. And what I realize is that it's one thing to hear the word from other people, but it's another to, have that intimate, like talk to him personally and have that connection. And if there's, I had to mix it up. So this week has just been more of just sitting with him. He's revealed a lot, that's what he does. And it's just been really good, but I have really made that a point to make sure that I'm not, it's so easy now because I've been home this week. And so it looks a little different, kind of like it's the same as last week. Sorry. Tuesday and Wednesday, yesterday and today, I'm home. Mm-hmm. And it's really easy to get distracted washing the dishes or doing other things. And I've had to really, like I said last week, one day, Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday. I felt like he was calling me all day, but I felt like I was just, let me just do the dishes. Let me just do this. Let me just get the kids organized. I just, panic rather than just saying dishes can wait. And I've really had to choose that this week. I've really had to choose, like, make those choices. And even waking up telling myself, like, you're going to get distracted. You're going to have to make the choice to actually go out and sit with him. And it's been good that I've been kind of mentally preparing myself, and not to say that I'm, I think that's a fine line, because I think that you can kind of, like foreshadow your day if you say certain things. And so I have to be really careful with that. But this week, knowing what I went through last week, I've just said, like, you're going to have to make that choice, and you're going to have to be okay that the dishes can wait. As long as you get them done today, who really cares?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, so I've been doing a lot of everything we worked on Friday, just implementing it and just feeling a lot better. I mean, I can't even believe what a difference it makes, I'm just, so.
Okay. I love it. I love it. And so, along the same lines of choosing to make those choices, do you feel like if you could have told something to last Tuesday's Shanna, if you could have said anything to last Tuesday's Shanna just to help her break even a little bit more free from that anxiety and that depression, would this be one of the things that you would tell her? Make those small choices? Or what kinds of things would you maybe tell her?
Yeah, I would say that I would have told myself that it's okay. First of all, it's okay. Because, specifically last week, one of the challenges was my son. So I would have told myself, it's okay. Even if this stuff is late, it's okay. It's okay. This pressure of having to get it in. And in the end, all of the teachers sent out an email saying that they're going to accept any work. And I thought, it's just there. I do tend to lean into the all or nothing. If I'm not really careful. And last week there was no thought at all of that. And so I would definitely tell myself, like, it's fine. It's okay. Like I would have told myself too, like, this is why you have your kids at this school. This is why you've made the decisions up to this point, is because the school is going to work with you. The school is going to give you grace. You chose to take your son out of the school he was in and put him in this school, like that. I wish that I had more confidence in my choices in the past that led up to this decision. Reminded myself of those things. And then also, I mean, I wish I had expected my cycle to start, but I didn't know. I mean, really, I don't want to use it as a crutch by any means, but just the difference even that I feel irritability wise is, how it is. It's just so different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been, and I would have told myself, to make those choices, like, it's necessary to sit with him. And even this morning, I'm not going to lie, I kind of was, because I was feeling so good. I had your voice echoing, because remember last week I was kind of like, I almost canceled because I felt so good, but I'm so glad that we got on our call. And that was this morning. I almost didn't sit with him because I'm feeling so good, but it's almost like, no, like, we still need to be, I wanted to be consistent this week to prove to myself that I needed it, because last week was a clear indication that I needed it.
Yeah.
So it's been good. It's been really good.
Yeah. And isn't it just so funny? Like, one of the things we talked about in last session was, do the breakdowns negate the breakthroughs? And I think that, like hearing you now, it's almost like, no, the breakdowns lead to the breakthroughs.
Yes.
Isn't that just such a funny paradigm shift?
It is amazing. And I will say that in the past, I've had breakdowns and haven't necessarily felt like I had breakthroughs after, but I wish that I could tell myself back then that there needs to be like action on that. When you have a breakdown, it's an opportunity to learn so that you can have that breakthrough. Because I feel like with every breakdown, there's an opportunity to have with every breakdown, there's an opportunity to have a breakthrough. But we have to almost be looking for that breakthrough. We have to be looking for those reasons. Like, why am I breaking down? And like, that's what I told my group this week. I was like, look, I didn't want to have the same week this week as I had last week. And I had to make some changes. It was necessary. And if I didn't make those changes, I would continue to have this breakdown and it would have lasted a lot longer. And I know you and I have talked about that, how my breakdowns have spiraled before and they've been so much longer than just a few days.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're right. I mean, it's been so good.
Yay. Okay. I don't know. I'm just so excited about this. I'm celebrating these things with you because this is huge. You could have so easily been like, just kept riding on that underlying discouragement, that underlying anxiety. And you're like, no, I'm going to implement some new things that might just be small little tweaks to our system, but look at how it just reaped a huge change in your attitude and in how you feel. That's huge.